Welcome back to On the Move with Victor She. It is Tuesday, April 25th. Right after yesterday's show, I glanced down at my phone and read a tweet that I thought was a lie. That headline read, Tucker Carlson and Fox News parted ways. As much as I didn't believe it, I started seeing it on New York Times, NBC, and other outlets confirming what I had just read, which filled me with a level of joy and happiness that I haven't really felt in a long time, because as we all know, Tucker Carlson is a man who has harmed and damaged our democracy and our basic sense of facts more than anyone else in this country, and his departure from Fox is only good news. But there are a lot of questions left that I will get into with my guest today, including what's next for Tucker? Does Fox getting rid of Tucker absolve them of their wrongdoing? Could this mean the beginning of change for Fox? And my guest today is Steve Schmidt, the host of The Warning with Steve Schmidt, and he joins me today. Steve, it's so great to see you. Thanks so much for being with me.
Good to be with you, Victor.
So there hasn't been a specific reason as to why Fox and Tucker parted ways. It seems like the rumors are that Tucker criticized Fox executives, but I'm wondering how significant you think this move is by Fox, both for the network, but also potentially for possible change in what they tell their viewers.
Well, I think there's 787 million reasons. At the end of the day, as a corporate issue, and I've said many times that I think Fox News is without question, alongside with the Sacklers, who ran Purdue Pharma and really instigated the opioid crisis. It is the most corrupt company in the United States. It's the most corrupt public company. And Rupert Murdoch is the most dangerous immigrant born somewhere else who arrived on these shores, was welcomed here, became a citizen. He's done unparalleled damage.
Yeah.
Now, Tucker Carlson in his show seems like a runaway frat house, right down to the posting of Nancy Pelosi's bathing suit photographs, which, think about it, right? Think about the culture of stupidity and toxicity, right? Where a bunch of people in a professional environment are pinning pictures of an 80-year-old woman who's the number 3 government official in the country to the wall in a newsroom, and everyone's just fine. So Tucker Carlson had this transgressive quality, which was basically, I can do whatever I want. I have the number 1 show. And he obviously tested that premise, and he was dismissed. It's worth mentioning, I think, that the organization is corrupt from head to toe. He was a rancid, wretched pustule of cancerous demagoguery, really a force of lying and foreign propaganda that's unequaled. But his departure does not change the calculus of Fox News as a billion-dollar lie machine at the center of this ravaging that's going on of the bonds that connect the country and remind us of what we have together, this assault on the truth that goes on. So none of that has changed. But Tucker Carlson will be gone for a bit, but he will be back. Have no doubt about that.
Steve, if I can ask you about that, because I agree with you that it doesn't seem like Fox is going to ever learn, but there are a lot of people, and this is pure speculation, but and I don't want to try to get into the mind of Tucker, but there are a lot of people who think this just emboldens him for a possible run for the presidency. Do you think that's possible? If not, I mean, what do you see as his next steps, if you can predict that?
Well, when you look at Ron DeSantis, and you look at the collapse of Ron DeSantis, let's look at what happened there. And understand, because it's key to understanding an aspect of why Tucker would be a potent candidate inside of the MAGA movement. So Ron DeSantis had an opportunity to run the easiest type of race to run, comes along very rarely, like a planetary alignment, and that's the front porch campaign. All he had to do, right, was invite the Republican Party's top donors, invite the Republican Party's top media, top activists, and literally each time They stepped across the property line onto the Florida governor's mansion. It would have been a step physically away from Trump, a step towards DeSantis. And on the way out, they could have talked about him as the greatest thing since Abraham Lincoln to the couple of cameras. It would have been really a ripoff of what George W. Bush did, with an update around what Donald Trump did in the early days of Mar-a-Lago. That's not what DeSantis did. He went out and tried to run a public campaign without engaging Trump at all, allowed himself open to be attacked. And at the end of the day, what is true in every presidential campaign is the next one is in some measure a reaction to the last one. And what people don't want is diet Trump, right? What will come after Trump is an amplification of Trump. And so is it possible for someone to be more shameless, more dishonest than Donald Trump? It is.
Tucker, yeah.
Who amongst us, the 330 million of us, right, has the capacity to do that? Tucker Carlson is on a very, very small list of people who have that capacity. And of course, were he to get into the race, to be on the debate stage, he would compel Fox to cover him, to have his revenge. And he is very much a person driven by a smallness and a pettiness that makes that a real possibility.
That's terrifying to imagine. And we all have to remember that one. I mean, if Tucker does go against Trump, Tucker hates Trump, according to the Dominion evidence that was released over the course of the past few months. But I want to circle back to Fox because aside from Dominion, I know you've been critical of what happened in the Dominion case, but Smartmatic also has a defamation case. And they've said not only do they want more money than Dominion in the settlement damages, but they also want a public apology. If that happens, do you think that anything will change inside the Fox organization? Will it change the Fox viewer mind at all?
Well, we don't really know yet what happened. We don't know what lawyers at Fox saw what and when regarding the Fox News producer who's made claims of, a situation rife with anti-Semitism, all sorts of things. Now, at the end of the day, if I was the CEO of Dominion Voting Systems, I would not have settled the case ever, right? It would have gone to trial. It would have gone all the way. The next CEO sounds like, at least to start, that he has more resolve. And this is an important question, not just for his shareholders and investors, I think, but for the country. And what you hope is that this person will stand on a principle that will go beyond the settlement talks and say, well, no, you defame my company, everybody that works for it. There's an important principle at stake, and we're going to pursue it. And at the end of the day, I think the most extraordinary revelation in all of this is the fact that the person who Fox News has always banked on, right, through the Brett Baier, right? But Brett Baier's a journalist, but Brett Baier's not a journalist. Right? None of these people are. So you're sitting there on election night and in the days after, and you have this correspondence. Well, how are we going to shade the truth in a way that doesn't inflame and offend our propagandized to audience? And it's extraordinary trying to think about, in the era that I grew up in, Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw, Dan Rather, right? Being afraid to tell the truth to their audience, right? Like this is something that's just so out there. It's so extraordinary. And what I think is most extraordinary, even in the aftermath of the settlement, that Fox News isn't a news organization. I know that it's not a news organization. It's plainly evident to millions of people. But the organizations that insist it's a news organization are ABC News and CBS News and NBC News and the Washington Post and the New York Times and all the other primary members of the White House Correspondents Association, the White House pool, that recognize this propaganda organization as a legitimate news organization. And so I think the danger as it goes forward is that that gets stripped away because it becomes too unbearable to carry that weight of hypocrisy.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you something about, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because I believe you're a man of wisdom, and you have, I would think, an interesting insight into this, which is, we talk about just Fox's abdication of responsibility, not telling its audience the truth, lying to their audience. But at the same time, you have a whole segment of the population that believes in what they're hearing and what they're being told. Is there any way that you can think of, both in the short term and the long term, that we can get people to understand facts again and bring that type of kind of news literacy, civic awareness back into the American psyche?
I think you have to have an appreciation for the power of propaganda, that it is effective, that it works, that we have an enormous problem. The problem is that after 8 years' time, that boundary out there in that proverbial space-time continuum, right, between the lie and the truth is become blurred. And we have millions of people who have been conned, lied to, and deceived by one measure or another, and are imprisoned in a type of solitary confinement intellectually, where the bars are the algorithms, right? So I think we have to have sympathy and a recognition, right, that how do we reach and how do we communicate? And there's for a lot of us, right, we're related to these people, right? So the connections are not far apart, right? We're not talking about a state in Brazil, right? We're talking about our families, our friends, our co-workers, our countrymen, right? So that's one aspect of it, right? Is how do you communicate what this is? The second thing is Trump's been going on since you were 12 years old.
Yeah.
Right. It's 8 years on. He's still around. 24 is not 20, is not 16. And I think the race starts with understanding what's at stake, what's happening. Wherever we are as a country, we are far down the river, proverbially, right, from where we started in 2016. If you got knocked over your head when Trump came down the escalator and you woke up today and you started filling me in on what had happened, I wasn't expecting good things at all.
Yeah.
Right? Holy shit. Right. And so what's becoming clear is we're going to have a contest for president that is increasingly appears to be between Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Which no one wants. Right? There's not a market for that in the country, right? In fact, you say what's an issue that people agree on? Brother, Republicans say they don't want Trump, but they're going to get him. Democrats say we don't really want Biden. We think he's too old, but they're going to get him. Right. And everyone is going to get a choice between two people they don't want. That's exhausting. Right. That to some degree I view as a national catastrophe. Right. So what is that? Right. Well, that's democracy. Right. But democracy is producing a result in our system that no one wants.
Yeah.
And one side of that broken result is profoundly different than the other side. Right. So the one side is an extremist threat, right, that is promising to fix what's broken, democracy, right, by ultimately getting rid of it, should they prevail in 24, which is a world historic tragedy, right? That's how democracy goes down. The collapse of faith, the collapse of belief. And so this is a late starting cycle. The enthusiasm register is like at 0.0. But one thing is for sure, the election will come. The primaries will start. The debates will happen. And more money will be spent in this cycle than was spent in the last presidential cycle. And when this cycle is done, right now, it seems we'll be sitting around on election night, Biden or Trump. And the question will be, Biden, who won the last time by a few thousand votes across 3 states, can he maintain a coalition in a bad economy, in a culture war, where the extremes on both sides are in this perpetual battle, cheered on by a broken news media? And my perspective is anything can happen, but in a broken system where I think we have 2 broken parties, again, unequally, I see very easily how the authoritarian extremist party comes out on top in that election. So we're at a really dangerous hour in the country's story.
Yeah, it's a dangerous hour, but I just hope, and it's why I'm grateful that you have your show, The Warning, and your Substack, and there are so many people out there who are trying to raise the alarm bells about this, because like your show, it says, I mean, it is a warning for our entire country to realize this threat, and then ultimately, hopefully, even if you don't like either candidate, just vote for the pro-democracy side. There is only one party that believes in that fundamental idea, and hopefully we can get as many people to understand that as possible. I know you are doing amazing work, so thank you, Steve, for all that you're doing, and thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Victor. Good to be with you.
Steve Schmidt is always great, and I think his last answer was good. I sadly, I see what he's saying about, we have 2 candidates, right, who are both above 75 years old. Donald Trump is 76, Joe Biden is 80, and a lot of people just don't like them. And it is kind of feeling like we have to choose the lesser of 2 evils for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, the stakes of not voting are so much greater than the stakes of voting are so much greater than the stakes of not voting. And so we have to make sure that we get as many people understanding just the importance of this election and the contrast between the 2 parties. This is not a normal time. You can't just sit this out on the sidelines. For someone like Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, we have to vote for the candidate, even if we may not like him, even if he may not be perfect, who has delivered for us and who has actually done things that will improve our lives, and not the president who has incited an insurrection and who continues to seek to destroy democracy. The choice before us is so clear, and every day before election day, between now and November of 2024, all of us really have to do our part to talk with the people we know, to really get that information out there, really ask people, is this the type of person you want? Even if you may not like Joe Biden, there is no alternative. What are you going to vote for to replace Joe Biden? There is no replacement. There is no alternative. So whether you like it or not, you have to settle for Joe Biden, because that is the person who is going to at least not destroy democracy, who is serious about governing, who respects the basic kind of things that bind our nation together, right? Equal justice under law, we the people, he respects the rule of law. And you have a president who has totally kind of abdicated that responsibility and doesn't seem like he's going to change anytime soon. And so we as Americans have to ask ourselves, we may not be perfectly content, but not voting for Joe Biden would bring us so back, and could, like Steve said, bring us into this authoritarian state that we might not be able to get out of, right? Democracy is fragile, and the only way that we can keep democracy going is by having each and every one of us get involved, stay in the fight, and ultimately vote for the candidate who will protect democracy. And more than ever before, that candidate and that party is Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. So I'm saying all of this because, this morning, Joe Biden announced his re-election campaign for 2024. If you haven't watched the video, you definitely should. It was a very well-produced video that I think kind of featured and really capture this moment of why we have to re-elect Joe Biden. We cannot risk electing Donald Trump. This is like Joe Biden always says, a fight to restore the soul of our nation. It is a dangerous moment. It is a call for people to really step up and vote and organize. And I know that's what I'll be doing. That's what all of you will be doing. This is the community that we have built, and it's more than just watching this show. It's about taking action. And I'll be providing resources and message points that maybe you can go and amplify, but it takes all of us to do the work. I'm grateful that you all watch the show, but as we head into 2024, take that extra step. I'll introduce you guys to, text banks, phone banks, any way that you can get plugged in, any organizations that might be good. So stay in the loop for that, but it takes all of us to take that extra step, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. Those 10 minutes a day of just sending text or making a phone call or two, they will make a difference. And if you can get your friends and family members to do so, that is even more important and more impactful. So the fight is just ahead of us, and I know we'll be talking about that a lot more. But this morning, the biggest news that I saw was this Joe Biden announcement. And of course, the one other thing that's happening today is the start of the E. Jean Carroll trial against Donald Trump for supposedly raping her in a New York department store in a back room. So that is happening today. We all stand with E. Jean Carroll, and for a president who has gotten away with so much, E. Jean Carroll is someone who's not going to back down. She has the courage, she has the bravery, and I think we should all be just taking a moment and really thanking E. Jean Carroll for what she's doing for our country, for standing up to Donald Trump, and most importantly, for not bowing down to Donald Trump. So thank you, E. Jean Carroll. We are standing with you today. We'll be back every day this week for new episodes of On the Move. You don't want to miss it. Tomorrow, I will be back with Larry Sabato, who will talk about Biden. We'll talk about Democrats. We'll talk about what Democrats need to do to win. Larry Sabato is the director of the Institute of Politics at University of Virginia. He's a great voice, and he provides a lot of clarity about the state of our elections and has a crystal ball. So I'll ask him about his crystal ball. And then on Thursday, I will be joined by Ben Wickler from Wisconsin. He's the chair of the Democratic Party in Wisconsin. We'll talk about what we can learn from Wisconsin and what Democrats across the nation should be doing as we head into 2024. And then on Friday, we'll have on Juanita Tolliver, who is a great political analyst. She speaks about the issues of the day in such great terms. So don't miss those. We'll be back at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. Don't miss it. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you all tomorrow.